do something you love,
Mm.
right? Do something you love. And I love feeding people. I love watching people develop. I love it, right? I really love it. I enjoy it. And I think that's one of the keys to being successful as well is do something. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to start your own business. I don't care what it is. But if you're going to start your own business or be an entrepreneur or step out and try something, do something you love. It's a lot easier to get out of bed when you're doing something you love than something you're like, oh, I just got to go do this again every day. Life's just you know, people say life's too short. Life's too long to not do something you love.
Hello and welcome to the Break Free Podcast. I am your host, David Mansella. Today we have with us again Mr. Chris Schultz. How are you doing, brother?
Oh, David, I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Good, thank you. Last time we had our podcast, we had some technical difficulties. Plus, your life is so full of wonderful achievements that we didn't have time to finish.
Oh,
So
that's very kind.
I'm actually wake up excited this morning, knowing that I got the pleasure to see you again, to talk to you again, and I know that the audience will get blessed with your messages. I was listening to your podcast last time, and I'm like, I'm getting blessed just by your experience and the life lessons. I used to read a lot of business books, and I remember that I wanted to apply everything that I learned to every book, and that was impossible. So what I did at the end is I said, if I can apply two or three golden nuggets in my life out of this book, my life is going to get exponentially better. And then I didn't have to worry about the rest. So usually what I did is I will open the book, read the entire book, and just, highlight what that was touching my heart. And then out of those 10, 20 things, I will just implement 1, 2, or 3 things maximum. And that exponentiated my life. So this is what you are bringing to this table, Chris. You're not bringing one book's worth of wisdom. You're bringing an encyclopedia of wisdom.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been an interesting life. It's been an interesting life.
Chris, for the audience again, or for the people that didn't listen to your first podcast, tell me your full name. Where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so my name is Chris Schultz. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Voodoo Doughnut.
Okay, just to start, how many stores did this donut place had when you started, and how many stores do you have? How many employees did you start with? How many employees do you have right now?
Yeah, so when I started, we had 5 stores. We had a little under, I think it was 75 or 80 employees. As of Saturday this week, we'll be at store number 22, and we'll have over 1,000 employees that we take care of every day. So very, very excited. Yeah, I leave tonight to Chicago to support our 22nd store opening in Chicago.
That is beautiful. And I know that you do that with making profits, right? I used to make the mistake when I was growing up in my business life. I measured my success by the number of employees that I had. And I didn't care about the profits. And I almost went bankrupt.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, right? I really measure my success by my number of failures. Right. And failures that I learned from and how even just recently, opening our 22nd store, we stumbled a little bit along the way the last couple of weeks in construction and kind of what we're doing. And, you think by the time I'm where I'm at today, I would have it all figured out, or we would have it all figured out, right? Opening a store should be like riding a bike, right? Opening all these stores. But we had a couple aha moments in the last 3 or 4 days where we're like, oh my goodness, a miss, right? And what do we learn from that? So the next store we open, we just get better at it. And whether that's a hiring fair and a job fair and how far ahead we hire, what we do, or just straight construction, right? So yeah, I've learned to really start to measure my success around our learnings as an organization and what are we learning.
So you are a master of growing franchise organizations. We talked about that in the last episode. I want to know though, for people that didn't don't remember or didn't listen to your first podcast, you started as a dishwasher boy in a Mexican restaurant. Your nickname was Carlos, and I think they still put Carlos there, and they never knew your name because they speak English.
Right? Yeah, they didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Spanish, so they called me Carlos. And for that, like I think I shared, for the first year, I tried to convince them my name was Chris, and then I just gave up. So to this day, if I go in that restaurant, gosh, now 35 years later, there's one person still there, and he still calls me Carlos when I come back. He gives me a big hug, and Carlos, and it's great because I was remembering after our call, I still visit that restaurant. And again, there's one person still working in the restaurant. Believe it or not, 35 years later, there's still one person working in that restaurant. And he doesn't care what I've gone on to do. He doesn't care I'm CEO of Voodoo Doughnut, or I started Mod Pizza, or I worked at Starbucks. I'm just Carlos, the guy that was a dishwasher 35, 40 years ago. And he treats me as such. And right, well, as you shared, right, never grow too big. Remember where you come from and what your roots are. So it was a great reminder for me coming off that call.
Chris, what is your strategy? My point is, how do you go into a business that wants to expand? How do you actually take the leap of faith and start opening up new stores, investing a lot of money, and knowing that you're going to be successful? Like, what does go in your mind when you decide, okay, it's time for growth?
Yeah, well, the first thing that goes through my mind is I'm crazy, right? I mean, who would do such a thing? But the other part is, for me, growth is in growth. Although it sounds wonderful and it's great for more profit to the bottom, and we can buy more things and we can do more things. For me, the important part is growth in the organization helps everyone inside the organization, right? The more stores I open, the more opportunities for the folks that work for me to step up and become managers and supervisors and directors, because the business is growing and they're learning and they're developing as well. So number one, that's what really drives me, is to give everyone opportunities. I have a number of people that are with me today here at Voodoo that have been with me for 10, 12, 15 years, had followed me from other companies and come to Voodoo with me for their growth. So that's step one. Step two is really being committed, right? And understanding what it takes to do just that, right? Obviously, it's fundraising, and whether it's a bank loan or investors, right? You're taking other people's money. And you have to be honest and sincere and transparent with all of that, right? And recognize the importance of that. The third part is you've got to be willing to take a risk every once in a while, right? I mean, for folks that build businesses, whether you're building a restaurant or whether you're building a brand, you have to realize what's reality. So I'll give you a great example as a restaurant. If I open on Main, of a particular city, sometimes it's about the location, not about the brand. And you have to separate that and recognize, do I really have a brand that can grow? Do I really have a product that can grow? Or do I just happen to be at the right place at the right time in the right location? So it's balancing all of that. And then it's a little bit of that leap of faith, right? Hiring the right people, let them do the job that they're paid to do and that they know they can do, and allow them to grow and develop. So it's a combination of things. And the other part for me is every day I wake up, I look at our sales, right? I get up first thing in the morning, and even 45 years later, the very first thing I do is look at sales right before I write down what I'm grateful for. There are days I go through, I'm like, boy, everyone stopped buying donuts. What happened? But I know it's cyclical. I know tomorrow will be better. But so I think that, failures are an option mentality, as we talked about, I think last time, and knowing that being committed to it. Right, it's super easy when things are going great. Right, when things are challenging, that's when the rubber hits the road. I'll tell you, probably for 7 years of my life, I didn't take a vacation. I didn't take a holiday. Like, I worked every single day, 365 days a year. Even when the restaurants were closed, I was working on things. And I realized, as I've come out of that now, as I've matured as a leader, we've talked about that. I recognize the importance of my own self and taking care of myself and making sure mentally and physically I'm able to be a good leader for my team. And so, now I take 2 or 3 days a year. Before I took 0. My family tells me I need to take more, but I think it's a combination of all those things, Dave, right, to really be successful.
I think you touched a really great point. A lot of people want to be successful in life, but they are not willing to pay the price what it takes to be successful in life. You said you didn't take a vacation for 7 years. I did something very similar, right? I ended up working 14, 15, 16 hours a day. I took it too much though, because the thing is you have to realize once you are mature enough that you can stop doing it. The problem, what happened to me is that I became addicted to work. It was actually an addiction. I get a high when I was working. So when I stopped, I would feel like bored. I wouldn't want to hang out with my family anymore. So what happened is that your body has a limit. And when your body says, I had enough, it will give you a kick in the butt. In my case, I had a heart attack. But I don't want to talk about the heart attack. I want to talk about the discipline and the price that I had to pay to be successful. And it's funny enough because they were about 7 years too, Chris. Now that I do the math, it was like between 5 and 7 years that I actually went all in. We made a pact with my wife that I was going to do this. And she actually told me, if you cannot retire me after 5 years, you will get a job and I will stay in my job and you will stop playing business, because I had failed before in the 90s. I didn't really fail because I sold my business for the amount of debt that I owed, so I didn't go bankrupt, but I was very close to bankruptcy. So I went all in those 5 years. The problem is I could have stopped. I could have done a better lifestyle after 5, but I kept going. And then 2011 comes around. I was driving to see a client. There was a huge snowstorm in the highway. I was 3 hours stuck in traffic, and then I saw orange helicopters coming in to rescue bodies, rescue people that are dying. And it just shook me. My BlackBerry, made a beep back in the BlackBerry days. And when the BlackBerry made the 4th beep for people waiting for me at the ballroom, I had the heart attack. Because my body basically says, you are killing yourself for money that you don't need to impress people that don't care about you. And I had a heart attack, so I had to turn back and went to check myself into a hospital. Having said that though, if I didn't have the business acumen to go through those 5 years of failure or mistakes, I wouldn't be where I am right now, because it made me a mature business person. It made me realize all the weaknesses that I had. What those people do, Chris? They say, I'm gonna go and start my own business, or I'm going to try to go become a CEO. And they never get promoted because they're not willing to put more than their 8 hours a day. And even during the 8 hours, they are not doing a great job during those 8 hours. They're still browsing, for meaningless stuff. Like busy work is another thing that I found. It's not the amount of hours that you put in, it's the quality of the hours that you put in. Because if you do stuff that is not productive, even though you're gonna get tired and it's gonna be hard, it's going to be useless.
No, yeah, I had the same aha moment. I mean, thankfully it wasn't physical, it was more mental. And I had a great boss who said to me, I'm going to stop paying you unless you take time off. I'm just not going to pay you. And so you're going to take a holiday or I'm not going to pay you. And I laughed in the meeting, and he got very serious. And it was one of the few times he got super serious with me. And he looked across his desk and he said, I'm being dead serious. You were going to take time off or I'm not going to pay you. And I took time off and I went away, and I realized when I was away, I was thinking about business, and I was like, it really wasn't time away. But that aha moment came over me where, something had to change. And it doesn't mean I'm not driven. It doesn't mean that I'm not still focused to be successful or I'm focused for my teams. I just allow myself to devote that time and devote the other time to my family and friends and those folks, right? That for so many years missed out on it. But I will tell you, part of the reason I sit here today, without having a college degree, without having formal schooling in my background, is because I wasn't willing to accept failure. I just wasn't willing to accept it. I wanted to be successful. And as we spoke about earlier, dream big, right? I was dreaming big when I was 20 years old. I was dreaming big when I was 25. And my friends were graduating from college and I was going to their graduations, or I couldn't go because I was working in the restaurant. But I continued to dream big. And, as I sit here today, we talked a little bit offline about this. I feel very blessed, very, very blessed that I sit here today as the CEO of a $50 million company with 1,000 employees. And I don't have that certificate hanging on my wall, but I do have a lot of sweat equity built into it. And I think that's part of being successful, is that willingness not to accept failure. Right. And you know, I mean, mistakes aren't failures. Mistakes aren't failures.
You are completely true, Chris. People have to realize that not accepting failure doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes. The succession of mistakes is what gives you success. Now, if you make the mistakes and you keep repeating the same mistake without learning the lesson, that's going to lead you to the ultimate failure. But even if that happens in your life, even if you make the same mistake over and over again, your brain is dead and you don't realize what you're doing wrong, and you actually completely catastrophically fail. If you pick yourself up again and you learn from what just happened, you're going to have success.
I believe so. I believe so. And the final part on, just to close out that topic, do something you love, right? Do something you love. You know, and I love feeding people. I love watching people develop. I love it, right? I really love it. I enjoy it. And I think that's one of the keys to being successful as well, is do something. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to start your own business. I don't care what it is, but if you're going to start your own business or be an entrepreneur or step out and try something, do something you love. It's a lot easier to get out of bed when you're doing something you love than something you're like, oh, I just got to go do this again every day. Life's just you know, people say life's too short. Life's too long to not do something you love, right? I mean, it's not life's too short. Life's too long not to do something you love. And I think that's always been kind of my mantra, most recently the last 30 years, if you will, from Starbucks to Mod to Voodoo. I love what I do. I really do. I enjoy it. I love it. And I'm proud of what I do. And I think that's important. I think that's important from a personal perspective. I think that's important with relationships. I think it's important with everything that we do. Here at Voodoo, one of the things we say is performance counts. Performance counts. Performance counts as a family member, as a friend, in business. Performance counts. You have to perform. And so, you know, and I live that mantra in my life. Performance counts. I've got to show up for my family. I've got to show up for my friends. I've got to show up for my employees. I've got to show up. You know, I can't just mail it in. I think sometimes people believe that if I just do this every day, I'll be successful. No, be in the moment, be passionate about it, and be authentic. So that's kind of my little soapbox on success, I guess. But, you know, for me, at least, it worked for me.
It's true, Chris. If you do something that you love, that doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. In fact, sometimes what you love the most is the hardest thing in life. For example, marriage. Right? I wouldn't give up my relationship with my lovely wife ever. She's my best friend. But you know, it took me 34 years to learn how to love her, honestly. I'm living the best year of my life with her this year, my 34th year.
Congratulations.
But imagine that. But it took so long, and we almost got divorced last year.
Yeah, congratulations.
But the thing is, I love her and she loves me. So that passion allowed us to figure it out what was wrong in our life. And now we're living in promised land. We're living in that promised land of blissfulness and happiness. And we still fight once in a while. But it's the same thing with business. I mean, you're right. If you are not doing what you love, your life is going to be super long, because you're going to dread every minute that goes by that you're not doing something that your heart likes. Isn't it true?
I think it's incredibly true. And I think, you know, it's that desire to take the first step. I mean, you and I talked about this offline. The first step is the hardest, right? That first step is the hardest, to recognize and be willing to step out and say, I'm going to go do this. Oh my goodness, I could fail. Yeah, you could. And it hurts when you do. And, you know, I've made a ton of those throughout my career, but I will tell you that first step, you know, when I decided to make a change from company or to another company, you know, that's a really hard, because we get very comfortable in what we do. Mm-hmm. Life is very comfortable. But those that are successful, those people are willing to take the extra step, because if you don't, it's a great big world. Someone somewhere is taking that first step. Mm-hmm. So if you have a great idea, if you have a great passion for something, if you don't take that first step, someone will take that first step. And I don't want to live a life of I should have. I should have done that. I should have done that. Right. So, I feel very blessed to be talking to you, very blessed to be able to share my story of where I've come from and what I've become. And for me, life's not over. Like there are so many other successes I'm waiting to have. I'm still dreaming big, and whether that's dreaming big of growing this company or growing personal. Like you, I used to read a ton of books. I'm a little more selective now based on recommendations. When someone says you should read this, I've got a group of people that I know when they tell me to read something, I'll read it. So I'm a little more selective because it seems like every time I turn around, someone's writing a book about something, and everyone's got an opinion. But I value those. But for me, it's really that willingness to be committed.
It's true, Chris. And regarding the whole book deal, as I mentioned before, I'm a man of faith. I follow Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I never happened to read my Bible. I never read the Bible in my life. So starting this year, January 2023, I told the Lord, I will never read another book until I finish reading the Bible. And I finished reading the Bible last week. So usually I will read 4 or 5 books a month.
Right.
But that book took me a whole year. And you know what? I probably understood 15-20% of it. Because it's just the scriptures just become alive. Now the incredible part is that it's been the best business book I ever read. Be like business. And then you want to become a good father? Read the book of Proverbs. Everything is there. Today I was reading in the morning, if you don't discipline your children, they will cause you pain when they grow up. Like that's in that book. And I'm like, I made so many mistakes with my kids. I disciplined them, but I think I disciplined them I should have been a little bit more strict. And in the ones that I wasn't as strict, they gave me more pain. The ones that I was more strict with, they were fine. So or talking about business acumen, right? Just this word that says, do unto others as you would like to be done unto you. If you apply that to your business life, there is nothing but success.
Yeah, we have a concept here at Voodoo, and it's a concept that I learned from a great leader again that I work with. We call it wide boulevard and high curbs, and this is how we run our business: wide boulevard, high curbs. And so, stay with me for a minute. Our boulevard is very wide, right? You go right and you go left, and we know that you'll figure out how to end up going north. But the curbs are really high in our business. So, and really, it's simply do the right thing are the curbs, right? Don't lie, cheat, don't steal, don't be disrespectful. Those are our curbs inside of our business. This is for every employee at Voodoo. And they hear me talk about all the time, wide boulevard, high curbs. And I think life is the same way, right? Long as you have set those curbs and you know where those curbs are, and as a leader, you know where those curbs are, allowing yourself the ability to go right and left, allowing yourself that flexibility to make mistakes, to know that I'm not always going to make the right decision, but I'm going to end up going north. I'm going to end up going south. Whatever direction you want to go, I'll go the right way. And we here at Voodoo, we don't have a lot of documentation. We don't have a 90-page manual that tells you what to do. We have a very small manual for 1,000 employees, right? That really kind of express the legal things we have to express. But other than that, we simply do the right thing. And I think same way I live my life, that same way, what's the right thing to do? What's the right thing to do, and how should you treat people? And it's helped us grow, especially in today's world where, as you know, and I know, and your listeners know, the world's changed. The world has changed. And the ability for people to be themselves and have their own voice is very important in today's world. And I want to embrace that, right? And we're only going to be able to grow when we do just that. And so the wide boulevard high curbs allows us to do just that, right? There's 1,000 employees, and we range from Houston, Texas, to Portland, Oregon, to Denver, Colorado. Different people, different employees.
Different cultures.
Different cultures. But I will tell you, when I go in each of the stores, and again, I'm blessed, but I have the opportunity to go visit these stores, and it's the same person in Houston that's in Colorado. They just don't know how similar they are. They think they're different, but they're really the same person, right? They want to be respected. They want to be recognized. They want to be treated as individuals, and they want to grow and take care of their families. So that's how we've been successful here at Voodoo. We never have staffing problems. We never had an issue with filling our stores with people to work. And I think part of it's just because of the way we live our lives here at Voodoo.
And and that's a miracle, Chris, because I remember, especially 2021, 22, the pandemic. I went to a Starbucks at the airport in Miami. It was like 5 in the morning. I'm like, I'm just gonna have a coffee while I wait for my flight. The line was like a block long inside the airport because there was only one lady working at the shop and then when I finally got there, because I had nothing to do, I waited. I asked her, what's happening? And she says, nobody wants to work.
Yeah.
Nobody
wants to work. Yeah. It's just a different world. The employees are different than they were 30 years ago. But I think it's all for the good, right? I think it's all for the good. And so we're learning how to adapt here inside of our business, inside the restaurant business, that we employ a lot of people. If you think about it, I think I read the other day that 80% of the entire U.S. first job is in a restaurant somewhere. Dishwasher, hostess. I mean, that's a huge number when you think about 80% of people that are working, their first job was in a restaurant somewhere. So the industry itself is built to provide opportunities for people.
I really applaud you, Chris. My dad had 7 different businesses before he passed away. One of the businesses was a restaurant. And he told me that it was the hardest thing he ever done in his life because the profit margins are so little. And if you don't manage that ship very tight, you end up losing a lot of money or reputation, right? Customer service is number 1. So, how do you manage that? The industry is a blessing because it does provide a lot of employment for especially inexperienced people. But at the same time, it's a tough business, especially with inflation, right?
Yeah, and it's getting tougher by the day to operate inside the restaurant world. I think for us, the most important thing is we have to accept that it's a different world. So what you used to make in profit 10 years ago, you're not making that any longer, right? It's been cut, not in half, but it's been cut by 25% of less. And I think the reality for us in the restaurant business is you've got to be passionate about feeding. You just have to be passionate about it and be thoughtful and recognize that everyone is valuing their dollar that much more nowadays. So when you go into a restaurant, you're really cognizant of the service you receive, the quality of the product you're receiving. You're much more cognizant than you were, 10 years ago, right? Think about it. 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, you could get something to eat for $1 at many of the fast food restaurants, right? $1.
I remember the Wendy's deals, right? Hamburgers, chilies, salads, all for $1.
All for $1. But that came with an expectation, right? For $1, you didn't expect anyone to say hello to you or goodbye to you. Right. You were paying $1.
Yeah.
And so you didn't really care. And now that same dollar is now it's $2.50 or $3. And now when I hand you $3 or $5 or $10, I want somebody to recognize me, to acknowledge me, to say thank you.
Yeah.
Because there's a proliferation of restaurants. Number 1, number 2. I'm working hard for that $1 or $2 or $3, and I want someone to recognize me. So that's how it's changed for us a lot, is ensuring that we are recognizing the value when a customer walks in our door. And again, I think it's the same for any business. Many of your listeners aren't in the restaurant business, they're in other businesses. But recognizing the importance that a consumer is making a choice to come to see you. And when they do, you've really got to go, that whole mantra years ago, the customer is always right. And, I heard someone say the customer's always right until they're wrong. And in my world, the customer's always, if you're willing to give me $1 or $2 or $5, you're right. I need to do everything I can to ensure that you're being respected for that because everyone's working hard for it. So it's a different world. And again, as you said, the profits inside the restaurant business have shrunk a little bit. But, listen, you drive down the street and you see new restaurants opening in your neighborhood, in your community all day long, every day. So, yeah, things are tough, but don't feel so bad for me, right? We're okay. We're a community restaurant.
I know.
So somehow we figured it out.
What tough times, and what you said, the economy goes in cycles. And what tough times does is that it gets rid of the fat. When you have tough times, it's a great opportunity for good companies to go and grow and expand and take market share. Because usually the companies that are enjoying the good times so that they get away with stuff that they shouldn't get away with just because there is plenty and abundance, those are the first ones that go bankrupt. And then those people that are left behind need to be served. They need to be serviced. You know, in the toughest economical crisis in the States and Canada is when most of the Fortune 100 companies have been built.
Yeah, right? No, it's you know, we here at Voodoo, we decided we have to become innovative, right? Right now in the world today, we have to become innovative, meaning we have to develop new product and all the time, right? Before COVID, we were very successful and we weren't being very innovative. We weren't thinking about our customers and our product. We were just kind of cashing in when people would walk in the door. And now we've recognized the importance of, we were built on innovation. We were built on a donut shop that came up with crazy, wacky donuts and people were Instagrammable and all of that. And we stopped doing that because, again, to your point, we were happy and we were being successful. And then COVID, I think it was that reality of, oh my goodness, where did everybody go? Yeah. And so we're leaning back into it of being more innovative and it's fun, right? It's fun when you get to do that. And it's fun when you start to think about that. And I'm spurring my team on to think about different things we could do in our stores, whether it's a marketing promotion or a product innovation or something different and unique that really will challenge the world in what's next, right? I've never looked ahead more than I have now. So in my current role, I'm looking in the future of what's the new things coming down the pike. What are people talking about? What's happening in social media? Never in my life have I looked forward as much as I've looked forward today in my role today.
Isn't that beautiful, Chris? Like people look at us and they say, oh, this guy should be looking for retirement. And here we are expanding and growing. And, you know, I truly believe we're made on God's image and God is always expanding and growing. So that's how we should operate. For me, there's nothing worse in life than getting bored. If I am bored, I'm depressed. And usually when I am bored is because my creativity stopped. My desire of blessing other people with what I can do for them stopped. And then you get bored. You know, I remember in 2014, I was so blessed that my basic expenses were covered by my passive income, which means I have financial independence. And I thought that meant I could go and drink margaritas all day in front of a beach. Little did I know that in 10 days I was bored to death.
Yeah, what's that saying? Be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Sometimes it comes true. Exactly. Right? Be careful what you wish for because sometimes it comes true. And it's an interesting economy. My family is asking the same question, like, when are we done? When are you done? Like, when is enough? And not enough financially, but enough from the passion and getting up every morning. And I just don't know what I would do with myself, right? I could do, you and I could talk every day, which would be great, but it would last an hour. Then I have to go off and do something else to keep myself motivated. But I think, the world is built on people, again, taking risks and willing to step out. You doing your podcast and welcoming your listeners to glean just little nuggets, I think is the most important part. You shared before about reading books and taking little nuggets. I hope that through our podcast, somebody grabs one little nugget, right? Not the whole thing, but just grab one little nugget and go, I'm going to go implement that in my life or my personal life or my business life. That's success. Yeah. Right. That's success. And that's really my hope when I share my story is that someone goes, well, that's a good lesson learned. Maybe I'll go apply that. And maybe they don't have to bump their head as much as you and I have bumped our heads in our careers.
Yeah, and just this advice that you said, like, go ahead and do it. Don't be afraid. How many people stay in a job that they hate just because they're afraid that they are not going to find something better, or maybe what they're going to find is worse than what they have? I was like that sometimes. Like at my beginning of my career, I'm like, oh my God, would be so scared to change jobs. I was in corporate for 10 years. And then little did I know that when I did the first leap of faith, I was so excited about the new challenge. I would usually get a promotion. So in 10 years, I got promoted 5 times. And I went all the way to the top by changing jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. I laugh about it. Every day I drive to work and I wonder if this will be the day when they figure out that I have no idea what I'm doing. that our investors will figure out, or my employees will look at me and go, you have no idea what you're doing, right? I mean, I literally drive to work every morning thinking just that. And then I get here and I shake that off and I come to work and we start doing things. But I think that self-doubt is, to your point, a little bit of self-doubt is what drives you.
Yeah.
Right. That little bit of self-doubt of am I going to make the right decision today? Am I going to treat people right? Am I going to make the right decision for the business or for the employee or for my team members or whatever that is? That little bit of self-doubt is what continues to drive me to educate myself, to talk to people like yourself and learn things. Because I know that every decision I make today is not going to be the perfect one. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Right. Someone's going to ask me, what were you thinking? And I guess I wasn't. Right. Let's figure it out and move forward.
But you always had the right intention. And that's the thing that counts. You do the decision trying to make the best decision with the right intentions. So if you make a mistake in that condition, all you're doing is failing forward and making yourself better.
I believe so.
And also, another thing that I must be clear, a little bit of self-doubt will give you the positive energy to figure out what's the best solution or what's the best way or how to grow. It's not an excuse to go into fear. Because if your self-doubt gets you into fear, you get paralyzed. And fear is your worst enemy. Fear paralyzes you in a way that you will become stagnant for the rest of your life. Right?
Yeah, I don't fear anything. I don't fear tomorrow. And that's a great point. I never really thought of it that way. You gave me a nugget today. You gave me a takeaway nugget today. I don't ever define it as fear. I define it as a challenge for me to figure it out, right? A challenge for me to understand. Gosh knows I would never position myself as being the smartest person in the room, but I will tell you at the end of the day, I'll figure it out. It may take me longer to get there, right, than a lot of folks who are much smarter, perhaps much more book smart or much more experienced than I have. But that never challenged me to not figure it out. And I think that, to your listeners, to everybody else, you'll figure it out. You will figure it out. It may take you a little while longer, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, nobody's counting. Also, Chris, another beautiful golden nugget. What you are just saying is what is the reason why I'm successful. Persistence and commitment always triumphs over intelligence and readiness. Isn't it? Say that again. Persistence and commitment always triumphs over intelligence and readiness.
That's great.
It's true.
Saying. It's very true. No, that's a great saying. Yeah, I had never thought of it in by that definition. I just always thought about I'm going to work harder. But I absolutely appreciate that. I remember my father when I finally shared, I'm not going to college. I'm not going to go to university. And it was no surprise because he'd seen my report cards and realized probably no one was going to accept me into university or to college. But he said to me two things. Number one, don't ever let someone outwork you. Don't ever let someone outwork you. And then number two, which is just kind of funny because you had to know my dad, always shine your shoes. That's what he said to me. He literally said, listen, it doesn't mean you can't shine your shoes. It doesn't mean you can't. And to him, he meant always be prepared. Always, shining your shoes to him meant you're prepared to go to work. You thought about it. You put thought into it. You're preparing yourself for what's next, right? It took me years. I was like, shine my shoes. What does that have to do with anything? But I realized it was his way of saying the night before, shine your shoes because you were getting yourself prepared for the next day of work. Yeah.
Plus, it's that discipline that implies that you're going to do it whatever it takes to be ready.
Absolutely. And, again, it was years and years and years. And I was like, what a great, Dad, shine my shoes, Dad. What are you talking about? But it literally was that. Like every night, shine your shoes and don't let anyone overwork you. Yeah. And I really took that as a mantra throughout my career where it didn't mean I was going to work more hours. It just meant if someone asks, I'd raise my hand. I'm willing to do it. And many times I had no idea. I'm like, I'll do it. And then I'd call my mentors and call people and say, how do I do this? You know, how do I grow? And you know, luckily it worked, right? It just worked.
It's beautiful, Chris. And you know, just for the people, if you are past 50 years old and you think your life is over, it's just beginning. I remember reading the story of Colonel Sanders. He started KFC at 60, over 60, and by 70, he was a billionaire already. In 10 years, at 60 years old. Talking about franchises, right?
No, listen, I think age is a number. And I say that now being on the backside of it, right? I mean, but, you know, for me, it's the vigor and the enthusiasm and the passion and the transparency and authenticness you bring to whatever you're doing, right? Defines you, not the number. I mean, we have folks in our organization that are young as 18, right? And I'll tell you, when I'm having a bad day at my office, I go to one of my stores. And all I do is go there and I sit in the back and I talk to them about life. I talk to them about what's going on in your life and what challenges do you face and it invigorates me. It brings me passion. It makes me smile again because I realize all the stress that I'm feeling when I get there to the store, they're just working to earn a living and they've got stresses and they've got life experiences they're challenged with. You know, I'll give you just a small example of that because I know we're on timeline, but we pay all of our people on a weekly basis. Every Friday they get a paycheck. It's unheard of in the restaurant business to pay people every week, just because of the complexity of processing payroll every week with 1,000 people. As you can imagine, everyone's hourly, there's 1,000 people. How do you do that every week? It's a very challenging thing to do. We used to pay them every other week like normal companies do. But I was in a store one time and one of the employees said, "Hey, Chris, I want to show you my new car I bought." And he had this beautiful car on the back in the parking lot. I said, "Can you take me for a ride?" And he said, no, I can't yet. I don't have insurance. And I said, well, why don't you have insurance? He said, well, I'm waiting for my paycheck next week to buy insurance. And I thought to myself, well, that's silly. Today's Friday. You didn't get paid. No, we get paid next week. Well, I have to wait to get paid. And I thought to myself, number one, how much was insurance? Because we were going to pay for his insurance so he could go drive his beautiful car. But number two, we need to make the right decision on behalf of the employee and not on behalf of the company. It was easier for the company to pay every 2 weeks. It was a challenge for every week for the employee. And I draw that as an analogy in a number of ways, right? What's right for your employees, what's right for your people versus what's right for you. So we pay every week now. Every week we cut paychecks. Sometimes I'll tell you, it's like a circus to try to get 1,000 people paid with hourlies coming in from all the stores. I don't know how they do it. I have a great team that gets it done every week. But, for me, it's one of those analogies of I was living in this world that I thought everything was perfect because it was perfect for me. But yet the people that I supported or the people that worked for me were really the people that were making everything happen. The process we had didn't fit their needs.
Wow.
And I had to adapt. I had to adapt what we do. And so, I constantly challenge myself to what's right for those folks, but not just what's right for me, but what's right for my team and the people around me. So it's an interesting dynamic as you learn being a leader, right? Sometimes you get so caught up in I've made the decision, I'm right, my decision's the best, I'm the smartest person in the room, until you realize he doesn't have car insurance. He's got this great car and he wants to take you for a ride.
No wonder, Chris, you don't have any staffing problems. Everybody would love to work for you.
Oh, that's very kind. Listen, I'm one of many. I have a great team around me. They won't let me do interviews because I hire everybody. Like I hire everybody. You interview with me, there's 99% chance you're going to get hired because I see the good in everybody, and I see the good in giving people opportunities. So my team has kind of cut me off from hiring people because they know I'll just be willing to hire anybody. But going full circle, that's where I get the energy from, is the people that work for me and the people that surround me. So if you're in a business where you're not getting out in your business and talking to people that work with you and for you, shame on you, right? Shame on you. You've got to get the energy from those folks that are living in it every day.
Yeah, for sure. Chris, thank you so much. Another 47 minutes have gone by.
Oh my goodness.
It's such a wonderful life lesson with you. I'll ask you one last question before we end the podcast. Chris, if you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it? What is the single piece of inspiration you can give the world?
Oh, wow. Wow, that came out of nowhere. Be grateful.
Yeah.
Be grateful. Grateful is such a powerful feeling, right? As I think I shared on our first call, every morning I get up and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. This morning I wrote down that I get to do a podcast with David today. That's one of my grateful things. But you have to remind yourself when things are crazy and life seems to be throwing you lefts and rights, be grateful. So yeah, that's what I would say. Be grateful.
That's beautiful, Chris. You know, we used to have 12 values in our company. When we rearranged everything, I said only 3 values so people remember. And the first one I picked is gratitude. I said, you have to be grateful. You have to have a growth mindset, and you have to have a mindset of giving unconditionally. We do those 3 things: gratitude, growth, give. You're going to have a beautiful life.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Again, it's been a real pleasure. Hope it's not the last time we speak, but if any of your listeners want to reach out to me, just Chris at foodie-culture.com. I love to hear from people. I'll answer any question. I'm pretty transparent.
Wonderful, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. I have this feeling that you're going to get called again in a couple of months because I love talking with you.
David, I appreciate you. God bless. Have a great day.
Happy holidays. Cheers. Happy holidays. Bye.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.